Oh,
Did I turn it on or off? Is there numbers in the window? Oh,
Numbers in the window. What they mean, that's supposed to be, oh, 803. So.
looks like, and I just checked these batteries last night.
This one doesn't have numbers in the window.
Okay, then it needs a battery. I think I got hold of a bunch of bad active batteries.
mine has numbers. Okay?
Yeah, looks like it is.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm fine, how are you?
Great, thank you. Morning,
Hi.
Fast clock here.
Yeah.
You playing some golf?
Yeah.
Well,
No, I don't play golf well, I just play. 8:30.
waiting for Rita.
Oh.
Well, it looks like everybody's all juiced up now. That didn't come out just right, did it? Okay, we're all set.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order. Rita, would you do a roll call, please?
Mr. Lyons?
Here.
Mr. Roche?
Here.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes, yeah.
Chairman Smith?
Yes?
And let the record show that Town Manager Thresher and Town Attorney Randolph are present. However, Mr. Murphy is out, like he had told us the week before. And he wanted you all to know that he followed through with his assignment. He spoke to the HOA in Place au Soleil. They are in the process of conducting a straw poll of their people. It is not completed at this time. They were happy to assist in this endeavor, and they said that they would not be able to attend until your next meeting, which is not until September. So, keep that in mind as you're going through your deliberations today.
Did they do it in writing, or did they have an actual meeting at town?
I believe the officers had a meeting, and they're the ones that are putting this together. So I don't think that they had a meeting in the whole group, but I believe their directors and officers met.
Thank you. I think everyone had in their package minutes from the prior meeting of June 26th. If you've had a chance to read them and have any additions, corrections, etc., would you bring them forward at this time? If not, could I have a motion to dispense with the reading?
I'll move to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Second.
Read it.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Roche? Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Smith?
Yes. Are there any additions, withdrawals, deferrals, arrangements of any items you've seen on the agenda?
I have none.
Okay. Announcements, meeting dates. There is no meeting in August, as you can see, and there is a meeting on September 25th and October 23rd. Does anybody here know if they will not be able to make those meetings?
I will be there.
I'll have to check on September 25th.
I'll have to check it down.
Me too, Rita. September 25th looks like a question mark possibly.
Okay,
And may I suggest that, so everybody can plan ahead, we could sooner rather than later identify the dates in November, December would be helpful.
Oh,
yeah, because those fall on the
the
holiday
holiday
times.
And I'm always away at that time, but I can make arrangements if I know in advance, but if it becomes difficult at the last minute.
Yeah, last year we moved them up the week
I would-
prior, and it didn't cause a lot of trouble. Maybe we could see what those dates are. And
Yeah, I would propose we do that.
That's what we normally do.
Okay.
Normally that fits into everybody's
Okay.
schedule.
Can we make a motion to do that and just change it now?
Does somebody have a calendar?
Yeah.
Can you read us what that date would be, Rita, in November and in December?
Well, in December, it would be the 18th. Because it falls right on Christmas Day this year, your meeting. And in November, it would be the 20th.
Those are the Thursdays before. Are they, everybody, we'll get back to, we'll report at a later meeting, but maybe pencil this in your book. So it looks like September 25th in particular may be a difficult date, Rita. Do you know at this time, is there anything coming before that meeting? Anybody talking about plans or homes?
Not that far away, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. We've been postponing for a number of meetings now, our reorganization because our chairman is no longer on our board. And we need to elect a chairman of this committee. And am I able to make a nomination? Or should it come from a member?
You should pass the gavel if you're going to do that, unless,
Well, I'm not going to nominate myself, so,
no, I know.
Okay.
But I mean, it's you.
okay.
I would like to make a motion that Paul Lyons become the next chairman.
Okay, you can second
I
that.
second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, can you Paul,
Mr. Lyons?
I vote on myself?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes, okay, Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Smith?
yes. With that, I will hand the gavel over to the new chairman.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Now we need to elect a vice chairman.
I move to elect.
You're chair now, you got to pass the gavel.
Oh, that's true.
Now you
What?
can go.
I'm already serving that role. You're
Yeah,
gonna
but
boot,
you-
you're
yeah.
gonna boot me out? Oh,
You have to do it again.
okay.
So you have to,
You make.
Somebody.
Well, I can make the motion to approve Tom Smith as vice chair.
I approve. I second.
Call the roll.
Vice Chairman Smith,
Yes?
Mr. Rhodes?
yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
And Chairman Lyons?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, we're all organized for
Yeah.
this year.
So the next item is by staff.
You have been provided various recommended code changes and communications from the ad hoc committee, and we have provided those letters to you. Attached also are the specific items to be discussed this morning in regards to potential code amendments. Now, I will say a couple general things. One, these are not all of the items, and I know Rita has outlined that for you, but we'll be bringing other items back to you for your consideration. We also have Marty Miner here, our consultant for dealing with code amendments and helping us walk our way through those. If during any part of the discussion you have any questions, please make yourself available of Marty Miner. And then thirdly, ARPB member Murphy did, as requested, contact the HOA in Wausau Soleil to make them aware of these changes. And the report that we have received back is that they do want to make comment, but they are not able to do so at this meeting. So we are thinking that at your next meeting or at the commission level, they can make their presentations for their comments or recommendations, whatever it is. The ad hoc committee wanted to hear from the residents in Place au Soleil, and they thought the best avenue might be the having the HOA do surveys and make comments. So that process is ongoing, and we are going to be receiving some, I guess, maybe some documents from them. So in general, that's where we are today.
Mr. Thrasher, can I make a comment?
Yes.
I just put everything in perspective as it relates to Place au Soleil. From the committee recommendation, I'll read from it. The committee throughout the process became ever increasingly aware that the Place au Soleil is a bit of a community unto itself. And they went further to say there's no kind of reason why that community couldn't have requirements that the residents desire. And that was the follow through on that recommendation by the ad hoc committee, was to get input from them.
Yes, yes, that is the purpose. We want to hear from them, and we actually, I think the ad hoc committee thinks it's kind of their responsibility to do that groundwork, hear from the residents over there as it relates to any code amendments. Now, I don't know if, based on what I said generally, if there are any questions, but at this stage, we would go directly into the specific code discussions. With no questions, if you would look at that memo that stated May 8th from me to the ARPB chairman and members, the first page there, although it's not numbered, starts off with section 2278 regulations, generator noise. And the recommendation from the ad hoc committee was that the language in the code be changed from full tower or full load, 100% load, to normal running, which means kind of like if you could use the analogy of a race car that is idling, but then when you apply power to it, the noise level increases. And so normal running is one thing, a full load is another. Who knows what level that might be during a hurricane or an event. I'm sure it'll be higher than normal running and it'll be lower than full load. But the question is whether or not, in my mind at least, is whether 72 dBA, which is the level at which our code defines the noise level to be at full load, if 72 dBA is adequate for normal running, reduced power. And I think I have asked Mr. Minor to look into specifics, what other communities do, and perhaps at this time, before further discussion or questioning, we might ask, I have no idea if you found anything or not.
All right.
It addresses on that issue.
Good morning.
Good morning.
For the record, Marty Miner, Urban Design Kildare Studios. Yes, communities take a different approach to generation of noise in various different ways. Some, they look at specific decibel levels to be measured at the property line. Others address it by setbacks and screening. This, I like the way the code addresses here because it sets it as a parameter of the generator type. That type, that each of these generators have a rating, 73 decibels is of the before you get into the truly industrial type of generators, from the minimal research. I am not an engineer, just a planner. But within the use for homes, 72 is about the top of that level, which would incorporate 90% of the generators that are associated with that. So I think that's a good number. I think it makes it more enforceable because it ties the decibel reading to the manufacturer of the thing. You don't have Mr. Thrasher or myself standing on with a sound meter, you know, trying to make that determination. And a little rambling, but that's where we're at.
There's a statement here that the rating of 72 decibels at full load is most likely more restrictive. So if we go from full load to normal running, the effective output seems like it might be a little higher. Is that, I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, I wondered about that myself, quite frankly. I really can't answer how that runs, what that difference would be. One thing I can comment on, in relationship to other communities, lots of the size of the towns here usually have much smaller accessory setbacks than we do here. You have significant ones that will help attenuate any of that noise. But back to your original question, I don't know the difference between what that difference will be, that delta between full running and full load and normal running.
I mean, I'd be inclined, if it was easily accomplished, if the equivalent for a 72B at full load was equal to 71 dB at normal load, we go to 71, but I don't know whether that,
There you go.
okay, so we don't know.
We also have a rule in here that if it exceeds 72, you have to have an enclosure to bring it down to 72.
No, specifically what Marty was referring to, generally, we use the product approval sheets where the manufacturer declares what that dBA rating is. It's a standard measurement in the industry, and there are no options. It must come into the town at the dBA rating, and in some cases there are enclosures and adjustments made by the manufacturer prior to shipment to get it down to that level. So we don't use anything but the product approval sheet. We identify from that product approval sheet. I'm sorry for all that. I'm not sure what's going on. But, we don't use anything but the product approval sheet. And we identify on that what the dBA rating of the unit is coming in, and if it meets the established dBA rating of our code, then that product is approved. What we ran into consistently was a specific brand of generator did not provide on the product approval sheet the terminology full load. It was normal
Normal load.
running. And so there has to be a noise differential of some amount from full load to normal load, normal running, full load. And so if you keep the dBA the same as it currently is, and it's identified full load, and we make it normal running load, it's my general feeling that the generator will be noisier. How much noisier, I have no idea. But in our code, the code that we use, it works effectively for noise. It works effectively for the administration, for reviewing permits, but it doesn't allow some manufacturers to place units in our town because of the product approval descriptions that are identified by the manufacturer. I don't know if that helps.
So it's,
Well, well,
Did you understand? me?
well, I understood what you said, but, you know, it seems to me that when a generator is running above normal load and the manufacturers all say that this is at normal load, you know, so I think that we as a group should try to comply or conform with what the manufacturer does, rather than asking each of them to change their booklets that they send out to millions of people. And, you know, but I don't, you know, for us to go from 72 to 70 or 71, I don't know what 1 decibel differential would do. You know, I just do not know. And I think that we're sort of toying with something that's up in the air. That's number one. And then number two, these generators are used during power outages by and large, and then they are tested once a month, is it? But, you know, I don't see us as dealing with a tremendous amount of usage unless there is a catastrophe. And so I don't see changing laws to try to abate a catastrophe, you know, by 1 or 2 decibels.
well, I mean, in order to, in order to allow a homeowner to have more choices in generators, as I understand it, we need to go from a term full power to normal running, because that's how they get rated generally.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we need to do that.
Yeah.
So then the question is, once we do that, what should be the number for decibels? Is that, am I getting?
Yes, I do believe that is the situation we're dealing with. We either leave the code as it is, which functions, people are able to get generators, and we haven't had a problem with noise. We did have problems with noise several years back. Not everybody leaves the island during hurricane season. And for those poor souls that don't have generators and have to open their windows because they don't have electric, they can get pretty irate. That happened, and would you agree with me? So, all I know is right now, it works, it's effective, but if you want to open up to more manufacturers, you would use the term normal operating, normal running, but I think you should evaluate what the appropriate, if there is an appropriate similar DBA for.
We don't know the answer to that question.
I don't know the answer. Is it possible to get an answer to that question, Marty?
It would be it would be difficult, because then, you know, if you're jumping from a certain class of generators to
Right.
a noise, a true noise, then you're going into a different type of enforcement kind of action where you have to do a sound reading. You know, limiting, you know, if we want to, I think you would have to go and bring in someone who knows generators. To go from a 72 to like a 65 or something like that, it's a smaller generator. Would that be sufficient to run a home here? And, you know, the purpose of the generator and all. I don't know that question.
So, let me answer this. The current definition of full power, the category of generators commonly purchased is rated at 72 dB. Is that?
Yeah, that's one of the options. The ones I ran across through anywhere from usually 65 to 72. There's a couple above, but that was generally the range.
Well, there's some at 68?
Yeah. But different varieties, some were portable rather than, you know, a permanent fixture. there's a lot of variables.
Okay.
But the 72 does encompass 90% of the manufacturer.
A large majority.
Yeah. Or, you know, a
Yeah.
large majority. And I think we should allow citizens to have as large a, you know, you know, a settlement of what they buy for themselves, especially if it's only going to be used, this is not something that's used on a daily basis. It's used during emergencies.
Well, why don't we move on to the other items? By the way, are we gonna vote individually, recommend it to go?
Yes, that's the normal operation, a normal thing that we do is sections of the code that you think are worthy of change or discussion, you will make a recommendation up or down to the commission.
And by the way, we don't know how this question came up by the ad hoc committee, do we?
Yeah, we had a complaint from a resident that the person was unable to purchase a generator from the contractor of her choice. And that person was really unclear of the code, and so wasn't the contractor. And I went out and visited the home and came up with an alternative solution that met her desires and our current code.
So it's just a different manufacturer, basically.
Yes.
Your experience has been that there is a number of different manufacturers where the homeowner has options besides just buying it from one
I
manufacturer?
think there's several out there, I don't know how many, but several. We know that one particular brand of generator, the product approval sheets do not speak of full load. And so therefore, and they're saying that they meet the 72 dBA at normal running, but they don't meet 72 dBA at full load. Because their product approval, they say it's proprietary, and their manufacturer doesn't want to disclose it.
I just want to say, I think you should be careful about regulating the manufacturing types of products, equipment, etc. I think you should just establish your decibel reading criteria, and manufacturers will have to meet that. But I don't think you want to get into regulating what it says on the side of a generator and that sort of thing. You're going to get into some real problems if you start doing that.
I would agree with that. What I'm challenged by is there enough in the way of legitimate choices, we change the definition from full power to long reading and leave the 72 and reduce
If you put this in, you're actually creating potentially more noise. I
well,
think it'll be 72 at normal, it could be
Right.
much higher than that at full power, full load.
That's
Correct.
Exactly
Correct.
right.
I had one of those behind my house. I had a neighbor who had a diesel generator. And let me tell you, when it turned on or surged, there was a material difference between the two. So this is worth talking about, but I think all of the new generators in the town are all complying very well. We haven't had any real complaints since
I haven't had any.
this regulation came in.
Have we had any? None.
No,
well, that's
We
right.
In
eliminated
other
the
words, it's
problem.
working very, very well. That's why I was wondering who brought this up.
And it's only
Change
one
the
exception.
definition.
It seems like it is one issue as opposed to a groundswell of a lot of people in the community. So.
Did you put a new generator in on your redo?
No.
Does somebody want to make a motion then on this?
I'd make a motion that we change it to normal running.
Anybody remember the background?
Anybody want to second that? Okay. Then that's fine. So I need to make a motion to, somebody's got to make a motion, please.
I make a motion to second.
Who made the motion now?
I made a motion that, that we do change it to normal running, since most of the manufacturers have it rated to normal running. And my background on that is that the use at full power or full load is minimal and only required during very catastrophic kind of events. So it is not going to be a meaningful effect on the community on a normal basis. That's my rationale, and so I would say changing it to normal running rather than full load or full power.
And Mrs. Jones seconded that?
Second.
Okay.
So,
You ready for a roll call?
Yes,
No.
you know,
yes.
Yes.
oh, I said yes, I'm sorry, no, I was looking at him for not ready
Yeah,
for
I
a
know,
roll
that's what I
call.
thought. Okay.
Um,
Mrs. Jones, you're voting for the motion?
Yes.
Mr. Roche?
I'm voting for the motion.
Vice
Yes,
Chairman Smith?
yes,
Okay, so that's to change.
to change.
Chairman Lyons?
Nope.
Go ahead.
All right, the next item is the concept of introducing a waiver system into our code. And that is primarily our attorney's discussion, that it is. And Marty has had some involvement and review of this as well, so if Mr. Randolph can
Well,
introduce.
you know, we've discussed this before. Right now, in order for someone to get a change to say any of the prohibited items in the list under the design manual, they would have to get a variance. And for a variance under our code, you'd have to show hardship, and you have to show that they meet all of the criteria relating to a variance, which is, under most circumstances, very difficult, almost impossible to get. So the discussion is, should we give consideration to having a waiver system whereby if someone can meet the various criteria, 1 through 5, that we enumerate here, that the commission may, in its discretion, it wouldn't be shall. It wouldn't say that the commission shall grant a waiver, but it will say the commission may, in its discretion, grant a waiver in the event these criteria are met. It would be a situation where an entryway is higher than is allowed under your current code. It would be a prohibited item. You've got the photograph which shows what the eave heights should be, etc. And so that's the issue, whether or not you think that this should remain as it is. And if somebody wants to get a variance from a prohibited section of the code, they've got to come in and meet the criteria for a variance, or whether you want to liberalize that and allow somebody, if they can show that what they're attempting to do is in harmony with the neighborhood and that sort of thing, whether or not you want to institute this waiver system. Now, where exactly this will go in the code, we haven't determined, but if you as policymakers, or as recommending to the policymakers, decide that this is a good idea, we would put it in the code in the appropriate place. And it wouldn't relate to the zoning code itself. This would not relate to setbacks, height, lot coverage, or any of those things. It would simply relate to those items in the design manual which are listed as prohibited and discouraged.
I have one question, and that is, I am in favor of a waiver. However, my question comes up in that if we get a number of different waiver requests from various different neighbors, don't we subject ourselves to, oh, you're taking favoritism on this guy and not on that guy? And You know, and so that tends to dissuade me from,
I understand.
from the waiver.
Yeah, now the way it exists right now, the architects, some architects say they like our design manual because it is so very specific. They know what their limitations are and they know what they can and cannot do. In this particular case, this is going to give an opportunity for people to vary from your code as it relates to prohibited items. The reason it's listed as prohibited is because a determination has been made in the past that these items are not items that they want to see.
Community likes.
The community likes. So that's why they've been listed as prohibited. Yes, this will give an opportunity now for people to come in and try to meet these particular criteria. They will have to show that what they're proposing is in harmony with the house itself that they're trying to build and is in harmony with the adjoining development. If, for instance, they have an eave height that is out of scale with houses in the immediate community, they would probably not be granted a waiver. But if they could come in and show examples of other homes in the community that have a higher eave height, etc., then they could be granted a waiver. You
But
raise
it's
a
all
good
up to this committee. It would be up to this committee and the commission.
and the commission.
Yeah.
That's right. So you raise a good point. It's going to create a more liberal atmosphere as it relates to these kinds of changes.
But isn't it true that, Curtis, as it relates to a variance, and there's a set of criteria you have to meet, but it's still at the discretion of this board and the town council as the granting of a variance. So, there's always that risk that somebody's going to say, well, we gave it to Joe, but you're not going to give it to Sally.
That's right.
So I don't think this raises a new issue. It just means we're going to have more
Subjectivity.
Yeah, we're
And
gonna,
more opportunity for constituents to voice their opinions. Yeah, and that's why I'm basically in favor of it. However, I did want to protect ourselves from the position of opening ourselves up to favoritism of some sort. If somebody can in fact prove that the balance of the neighborhood does have certain variances which this would conform to, I am in favor of letting the clients, as they discussed in this ad hoc thing, letting them as much latitude as possible without destroying our neighborhood's tone.
If it got to the point where you were granting these in a fashion that it became meaningless and it was doing away with the prohibition, that would be a problem. But if you, in a quasi-judicial hearing, were hearing evidence in regard to these 5 factors, and if you were convinced and the commission was convinced that they'd met these, then I don't think there's a great deal of risk in this creating a substantial precedent.
And so basically what this is really saying is that it's making it slightly easier because I view that getting a variance is a more difficult thing.
Yes.
it is very.
Well, in that case, I am in favor of it.
Anybody have any comments on the criteria?
It's a very strict group of criteria, and if you had to go through each of those 5 criteria, you're gonna do a pretty good job of studying the program. If we're ready to, I'll make a motion that we approve it under the criteria listed in the recommendation.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, Mrs. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Roche?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes?
Chairman Lyons?
Yes.
The next item is section 70-187, which is a table of district standards, fences, Place au Soleil. And the language that I have here basically is the language that was approved by the ad hoc committee. I'll read it to you. Provide language that would allow 6-foot open aluminum rail fences with a minimum 2-foot high base of landscape material planted in front, roadside of the rail fence, and shall be maintained a minimum 3-foot height. Such fencing would not extend beyond the applicable outer face of the structure.
My question on this is, should we wait for the input back from us, Soleil?
This and all of the subsequent items relate to Place Soleil, don't they, Bill? All of the planting techniques, front yard.
Well, not everything relates to Place Soleil. The general landscape standards are applicable throughout the town.
No,
Okay. But, okay, the definitions, open front yard is Place Soleil, that came in from Place Soleil. And they, again, wanted homeowners association input, so if you'd like to, I guess, not, if you don't feel strongly about making a motion without their input, then
I think we should defer it because the spirit was to get their input. I believe generally and probably more specifically to this, so.
You mean just 7187, are we going, is the whole rest of this?
No, I'm just talking about,
Okay.
and in the definition, I guess.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so you're gonna do, should we move to defer 7187 and 66-1 definition
Until we hear back from.
until we hear back from the ad hoc committee of Place au Soleil, or there, is that okay?
yeah.
Yes.
Just those two?
So the 7187 is going to be deferred and the 66-1.
Yes.
Does it have a formal motion?
Oh, I'll move that we defer their recommendation for section 7187 and section 66-1 until a subsequent meeting when we can hear back from the homeowners in Place au Soleil.
Second that?
Okay, Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Roach?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes?
Chairman Lyons?
Yes.
The next item, 70-146, and Marty, you basically authored this.
Yes.
If you could,
Yeah, we need help.
actually, the 7146 and 147, 148, 150, all of that. This was, all this language was approved by the ad hoc committee and recommended adoption, so.
And largely within this section, it's in an underlined and strikeout format. We moved the invasive exotic species largely from discouraged to prohibited, and expanded that term, common, local common species under the exotics. I also added a applicability section that the committee made some refinements to, and those are fine with those, their recommendations. I think they're excellent, where they talk about for anyone doing up to 50% of their landscaping that is seen from the street, I think is the new language,
Yes,
would then have to come in and get, a permit and comply with the guidelines. Still allows your weekend gardener to do some work, but if someone's doing an overall change, it has to come consistent with the town standards.
Tell me, And the opening comments you made, I'm not quite sure I followed you.
Within the chart, actually it's 7148, under some of the the landscaping requirements, preferred, discouraged, remove exotic species like acacias, melaleuca from discouraged to the prohibited.
And what was the reasoning for that, or logic?
The town's comprehensive plan calls for the removal of exotic species within the town. They're not encouraged by the variety of plans within the county and within the comp plan. So it's just to clean that up instead of discouraged, to bring more of a native palette to the overall community.
So the concept is to encourage the more native as opposed to
Correct.
the invasive, I guess.
The invasive that tends to choke out the rest of the natives.
Thank you.
So the only changes are the lineouts, Marty.
Yes.
In 7148, so it's just one word, shall or should change. What else changed?
Irrigation shall be provided.
Irrigation shall be provided.
Okay. Oh, okay, I see it now.
And
And that
then,
means nothing more than a hose within 100
right,
feet.
it's a cross-reference to another section of the code, so when people are reviewing it, they know there is a requirement if they're looking just at the design manual. Then you go down to the discouraged portion, and those are the, basically moving those down to the prohibited list.
They've been added at the bottom.
Yes.
Oh, okay, I see it.
And we added like kudzu, and chefalera, and
Carolwood even. And these were all, on the ad hoc committee, there was a landscape architect on that committee, wasn't there?
correct.
And he or she was in favor of all this?
I believe so.
Bill, do you remember? Was the landscape architect on board?
Yes,
with all
yes,
this?
he was. He thought it was
Okay.
it was unanimous vote by all members of the ad hoc committee.
What's a tire stripe driveway?
Where you just have a line of maybe pavers.
In your
where-
driveway?
Well, it would be probably in the lawn.
Or they used to pour concrete strips just for
Two
the
strips,
tires
two
to run.
Tires, oh.
A cheapy driveway.
They went along with jealousy windows.
That was very popular in
I know.
because it saved concrete, they just poured,
Yeah.
yeah, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
no, that was quite common in Delray, okay, now I'm about golf
Well, you have a lot of history.
so everything is, can we move, from section 7146 all the way up to the bottom of page 6 where it starts, section 7151? Or is that part of it? Oh, that is part of it, that's the 50% rule.
Yes.
Yeah, I have no objection.
I'll move we approve then the recommended changes from section 7146, section 7147, 148, 149, 150, and 151.
I say.
You're moving to go with the
To
recommendation.
accept the recommendations.
Mrs. Jones? Mr. Roach?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes?
Chairman Lyons?
Yes.
Moving on to section 70-166, it's recommended that we add the language there, a separate landscape and/or security lighting permit is required for any such work. So that we declare that a permit of this type is required for lighting.
I haven't read 166, but do we have some guidelines on the lighting or restrictions of the lighting, Bill?
Yes, we do.
Okay. There's some parts of Delray Beach along A1A that have gone over the top on lighting. This restricts the lighting somewhat, correct?
Somewhat, we're not over the top on lighting.
Here, no. No, but there are some homes in Delray that have, at least in my opinion, a little too much
Well,
lighting.
okay, this was brought about because there was thought that in some cases in redevelopment, the lighting, the landscape lighting is too bright. And this would then require a specific permit to be applied for so that we could literally analyze what's going in and have them conform to our code on this. So that's how this started. And this again was unanimous recommendation of the ad hoc committee.
As a practical matter, what's happening here, let's say a house has been built,
Yeah,
now they decide they want to redo the light.
yeah,
This is gonna pick it
and
up.
it'll pick it up.
Okay. Because that's, I think when somebody builds a new house, the lighting plan is submitted and you
Yes,
see it.
that's easy.
But once something is pre-existing and something, okay, I got it.
Would there be a fee required for the
Yes.
lighting permit?
Yes, yes, there would be.
Why?
Well, the concept is the recovery of our cost. And within any kind of permit review, you have 2 or 3 people engaged in the process. Not only reviewing the permit, recording the permit, and working with the contractor, making sure they're registered. So there's work associated with it, and it is the concept of recovering costs only, no profit.
So the way I see it, it's more of a told for the person who's gonna be choosing to change. So, he or she, or other residents don't pay for what I might wanna do, or vice versa. So-
Yeah, I see that, but I, having just gone through this process myself, fees, from the town of Gulfstream, fees from the town of Delray, seem to be sort of one on top of the other. And I remember that I personally was somewhat, distraught by that, but,
Yeah, it's a good comment, but the 2 functions are different. The fee that Delray receives is for the permitting, inspections, and the completion of the project. Our fee is reviewing that it meets our zoning. So Delray doesn't take care of zoning, we do, and the 2 require work and effort, and they're separate and apart.
okay, and would there be an addendum to this to let people know what that fee is?
Oh, yes, it's probably the general minimum amount, $50 or $75, whatever it is. It's based on the value of the project.
The time
Yeah.
used to evaluate
If
it.
you had lighting at $100,000, you might have a permit fee of, I don't know, $500, but $1,000 may only be $50, that sort of thing. It also helps control the, making sure the contractors are registered. We will not give a permit unless they're registered.
Right.
And that seems to have always been a high priority for our residents, that we have these stickers shown on contractors so we can somewhat differentiate who should be in our town and who shouldn't.
Okay.
Any other comments?
How does it affect, people who put up holiday lights? Do they have to get a permit?
What kind of lights?
Holiday lights.
Don't go there, please.
That's a good question.
I'm glad you raised it.
Is it exempt? It may be exempt for.
Holiday lighting is prohibited.
It is prohibited?
Is that right, Rita?
I don't remember it actually
You
being
mean on the
prohibited.
outside of a residence?
Discouraged? I don't know.
I don't,
I guess I don't remember.
Perhaps
It has-
discouraged. but
it
I
has
can't
never-
imagine
the
prohibited.
question has never arisen that I know of.
Very good.
except from one source.
Unregulated.
Unregulated.
Okay.
And I think we all know which one that is.
Andy and I are close to it. Oh, you were close to it.
Not anymore.
Well, we can address that later on if there's something that we can consider. And that's really, that's not a design manual issue, that's more of a town council, I
I would
think, right?
think so.
So we'll let them.
I see it right there.
Any other discussion on that? A motion?
I'll make a motion that we include that section in under outdoor lighting, a separate landscape and or security lighting permit is required for such work.
Second, I'll second the motion.
Mrs. Jones?
Yeah.
Mr. Roach?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes?
Chairman Lyon?
Yes.
Bill, you up on the next one?
Yes, this is more of a bookkeeping entry here, trying to get our codes in different sections consistent in language. And so, you know, I read it there, there was consensus with all members to have these sections reconciled, or to have them consistent in nature to each other, so that what appears in one section appears in the other sections. With the exception of language prohibiting metal roofs would be added to sections 7218, 72-238, which was a very sensitive issue for the ad hoc committee, and yet they maintained that metal roofs would be prohibited. And then adding language and adding a C, language at C prohibited cedar shakes except Anglo-Caribbean, British West Indies, and Georgia. That's the specific language from the ad hoc committee.
So the first paragraph is simply clarification.
Yeah,
It's
trying,
not less restrictive or more restrictive, it's just,
it would,
It's just consolidation really, because if you've been through the manual, which I went through all of this
Right.
last night, I might add it took quite a bit of time. You have one thing on page 56, another thing on page 280, another thing on,
Yeah.
and so if you can
A lot of
consolidate, but they all have to do with roofing. And so if you can consolidate it or make it consistent,
we're actually not, I don't know that consolidating is what we're doing here, we're just trying to
make it
add
consistent.
language that is consistent throughout.
for clarity.
Now, is the metal roof thing completely off the table in place also,
Yeah,
And what
there was no move, I mean, the
By anybody?
architects, no,
Okay,
yeah, they did not want to allow metal roofs.
And the thought behind that being that the town has attempted to be true in architectural style and features on the same building. And that we name which architectural styles we allow to be built in the town. And none of those allowed styles does a metal roof become an accepted architectural feature for those types. In other words, if you were going to allow Key West houses, then metal roofs would probably be appropriate. That's not one of the types that's allowed.
Also, there was discussion not only in the fences and PVC, but metal roofs as well, that there are different qualities and types of metal roofing, which they just didn't want to be part of introducing that option.
Do you agree to that, Marty?
Yes,
What I said?
yes.
It's helpful. Well, what about this language at C, prohibited, cedar shakes? That's new language or clarification?
That's new.
It's new, add language at C prohibited.
And formerly, it was silent cedar shakes?
Cedar shakes were prohibited, I believe, generally.
Generally, and I believe in maybe one or two, it was discouraged. But they felt that with trying to get away from that cookie cutter idea and provide some diversity, that cedar shapes would be acceptable on these particular architectural styles, but not on Bermuda.
Have any comment, Marty, on that at all? I'm not so sure you would.
No, I wasn't there. I'm gonna defer to the architect on the committee
Yeah.
regarding this. The only thing I would add is if it's acceptable in these three styles, that it be added under either the preferred or, you know, would that, should you also add cedar shakes, under preferred or as an option only for Anglo-Caribbean?
I don't know what's preferred, I think it's discouraged.
It's discouraged, or discouraged.
I don't know what they're proposing, I guess is my question.
My question, yeah, my question is if we're prohibiting all of them with exclusion, but is that, I guess it is discouraged is the
I would
answer.
assume, but.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think it's unclear in my mind as well.
I think that's something for the attorney to settle on.
Yeah.
If you were to say that you were in agreement to allow cedar shakes on these particular styles, then we would let the legal section or the attorney's office decide how that should be told in the code.
Rita, back to your comment about, metal roofs don't fit the styles we have in the town. Cedar shakes would fit Anglo-Caribbean, British West Indies, I assume that's the concept.
That's what the
Yeah,
architects were in agreement to.
Okay, well, I would, okay, thank you. Any more discussion? Motion?
So you're saying instead of putting it into prohibited, we would put it into discouraged? Is that what you said?
No, I didn't say that, no.
Oh, okay. So add this as is.
Right. I'm not making a motion, but someone
Okay.
can.
I've got no discussion on it.
Does that, there are cedar shake homes in Place au Soleil, are there any in this side of the water?
None that I know of, but I don't get away from my desk enough to know.
Do we have cedar shake in Los Angeles now? I thought,
The last one gone now? There were a few
Think so.
originally in the original,
yeah, there were a
some
couple,
homes were built originally.
but the Presser would be the only one that I think is still that way, but I don't think it is. I think they're all gone to concrete.
I don't know. I don't remember.
Well, I'll move that we accept the recommendation of the ad hoc committee for section 7099, 7218, and 7238 as stated here.
I'll second that.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Roche?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Chairman Lyons?
Yes.
Finally, section 7238A, to add language or other dark colored tiles after the words slate black.
Can you help me out a little here? What was the discussion that went on? with
Well,
this?
the idea would be that if somebody were to, well, we've been adding darker colored tiles to Gulfstream, Bermuda, and Anglo-Caribbean, I believe, gray, for example, some of these black. And that these would be presented to you individually at a review process. And if I wanted to, in a roof change out, bring it back, or bring it to ARPB, I have always that option for you to determine if that's the color acceptable for that. if I was told.
So someone under this language theoretically could bring in a black tile,
Yeah.
but it would be at the discretion of the architectural.
Yeah, I would approve it on a level 1, I'd bring it to you.
But there's still discretion here by adding this language, a discretion of recommending or
yeah.
not
Yeah.
recommending.
Yeah, that's right.
By the way, the house that was recently built on A1A, down about, I don't know, a mile on the left, it's just, there's two houses.
33 maybe?
And there's one that's very, well, there's one that's white and it's got a very nice, classic. And then the one closer to us has a very dark roof.
Mm.
You know which one I'm referring to?
No, I don't. I know 33.
Do you know which one I'm
Yes, I
referring
do
to?
know which one.
What's your impression of that dark roof?
Don't like it.
I don't like it at
No.
all.
It's brown.
It's brown. And I was
It's
really,
Gilman, isn't it?
That sounds like it, yeah.
and I was kind of surprised,
Yeah.
that we all, I mean, I looked at it.
Mm.
It didn't come out the way that I thought. In fact, I was gonna even go back to some of the paperwork and look at it again because
They brought a sample in.
it's,
Doesn't look too bad, any of those
They
samples.
originally wanted the red roof,
Yep,
remember?
remember?
Mm.
And,
I thought they went to a gray slate sort of
Yeah,
a
I
roof.
think,
no, that's the one they went to. That's the one that was approved, because we kept a sample of it
I think we didn't approve it, but it went to
to the commission.
the
Oh,
commission,
okay.
and then they approved it.
That may have been what happened.
Yeah.
so I'm, okay, so, I didn't get that.
Then maybe you better think carefully about
Yeah,
this one.
when you start adding
Yeah,
language like this.
I'm just really cautious about that. I can see this could be a nightmare. And, you know, the reality is that roofs are the top of the building. And the reality is the roofs tend to poke up above the landscape. And it's, you know, the roof really it's interesting how a roof really strikes you on a house. Didn't appreciate it until I saw that house.
You see what was happening with it was saying slate-like, along with what was preferred, like on Gulfstream Bermuda, thinking that they decided that slate had gotten out of sight for expense, and that some of these tile people were sort of trying to mimic slate. So they put this slate-like in there. Well, it's hard to determine when you're seeing maybe just two pieces of roofing. Is that gonna look like slate when it's up on the roof? I wouldn't know. So once you open the door a little bit, it's hard to close it.
Well, I don't, frankly, this other dark colored tiles, to me, adds more confusion than more clarity. And so I don't see any benefit to doing it. So that's my view.
I tend to agree with that. You know, I think, because if you say slate-like, that is somewhat inclusive anyway. And then a decision can be made as to what is like slate. But to add or other dark colored tiles ends up really extending the boundary.
Agree with that.
Any more discussion? Motion?
I'll make a motion that we do not include or other dark colored tiles to section 7238.
I second.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Roach?
Yes?
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Chairman Lyons?
Yes. So, Rita will, these items that have been approved or disapproved, or recommended or not recommended, move forward to the next, or do we have to wait for the,
Well, there's much more that, in addition to this, that you need to voice an opinion on. And
okay,
we will, I'm thinking out loud that we would incorporate the two items that you wanted to bring back to have discussed before the Los Alces with the other items that have not yet been heard by you. And then at the same time, we will be preparing a Word document of your recommendations to be presented to the commission once you complete your process.
okay.
Do you agree with that, Rita? Makes
I
sense?
think we should wait until we get all of your recommendations for all of the ad hoc and send that all together for the commission. And if we get some housekeeping items done, we can send them along, but if we don't, we should get the ad hoc part to them as quick as we can. Don't you agree with that?
Yes.
So our goal would be to, if possible, finalize it at the next meeting.
Which would be
within-
September,
So within a couple of weeks after that, then,
then the commission would have it.
so, early fall,
Yeah, October. Should go to them in October.
okay, late fall.
Mr. Chairman, it sounded like the September 25th meeting, 3 out of the 4 of us won't be there.
I'm worried
We better
about
want
that.
early poll. Is there a chance we could try an alternate date in September? I mean, I don't know. When you poll the troops, maybe you can ask them that. Is there another time frame that, like the previous Thursday or something like that? I know I'm not gonna be in town. Are you not either?
I'm just not sure. I have to check calendars and everything. But I know we have a relatively busy September.
Yeah. Mandy, do you know
I'm
yet?
not sure either.
Okay.
I have to look at daily schedule.
Well, I would encourage each of us to get back to Rita with the dates that would work. Because I think we do need to have a meeting in September. When is the next, remind me of the dates for the town council?
The council in September, instead of, their meeting is on the 12th, but they will be meeting in the afternoon rather than in the morning because of the budget meetings.
And then the following one is in October 12th?
No, it's October 10th.
So it seemed to me the goal would be for this committee to meet prior to that date, at least a week before. That,
I would say if you were gonna change the September meeting, you probably should meet the first week in September. Because that gives time far enough away for the commission meeting.
On the 12th?
I can't do that.
The commission,
I'm thinking about the October 12th meeting for the commission.
October 10th,
Okay, excuse me.
Yeah.
October 10th.
yeah.
I know early September will be very difficult for me.
Rita, is it possible to send out emails to everybody who's on the committee and see who would be able to attend the 25th meeting?
I would much rather call them on the telephone.
Or call them on the telephone?
Why? No,
I understand.
Okay.
I understand.
Uh,
It would be helpful that we know in advance, when we
Yeah.
speak to Rita, when we're available, not available.
Well,
Yeah, if you
it's,
could do-
we'll assume it's a Thursday morning, let you know what Thursday mornings we could be here.
Yeah,
Okay.
Counselor, I'm a little apprehensive about changing a meeting without it being changed in a meeting. In other words, we're not gonna have a motion to move a September meeting date, because they're not gonna have a meeting between now and then. Is that
You
gonna
mean, scheduling
Yeah.
a meeting? Well, but you'll announce the meeting publicly, once you find
Yes.
the date, right?
We don't need to make a motion now.
But if you can't figure out a date, if you could do a date now, that would be
be
great.
perfect?
That's what you would prefer, but, if you need to find out from them outside this meeting what date meets with their schedules, you can do so, as long as you're giving public, I mean, there's no public here now to announce the meeting date to
That's
anyone.
true.
So, you could, I'm sure you're gonna announce the meeting date at that time anyway, so I don't think there's anything wrong with, if you
Okay,
find out from them when they can meet.
okay, that's good.
I mean, if worse comes to worse, this could go to the commission at the November meeting, right?
Yeah?
I mean, it's not something that's that time sensitive, is it?
It isn't to us, no. We just,
So if you decide, if there's no applications and you decide not to have a September meeting, you could do this in October and it could go to the commission in November.
surely we'll have something else in September.
Wait, I thought there was a Cudmore discussion.
There was what?
Cudmore?
I haven't heard back from them, so.
I think I would discourage skipping 2 months, consecutive months. I don't think that's a good idea.
So
So-
we'll definitely have a September meeting. It probably will not be September 25th. Let's try looking at, check your calendars. Several of you said the first week in September is not good, right?
Yeah, I can't do.
That's Labor Day, it's kind of a Labor Day week, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
How about Thursday or the following?
That would be the 18th, even if we didn't have it on Thursday. If you just look at your calendars and see if any time the third week, and give me some choices.
Okay, so that would be the week, everyone on September 15th.
That's right, that would be Monday, 15th.
So Thursday would be the 18th?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
I can make the 18th.
I can make the 18th.
I mean, for me,
But I'll call you.
I just,
All right.
anyway, I gotta fly down, so.
I'll commit
I'll
to the
call.
18th.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, we'll try to shoot for that then, the 18th.
And hopefully, Malcolm will be here and
I think he will be. This is the first meeting he's missed, you know. So, just something came up in his business.
and particularly given that we've been talking about classes,
Yeah.
it'd be good for him to be here. Okay, can I move to, item 8, any items by board members?
No?
No.
Item number 9, any public comment? No? Does anyone make a motion on number 10?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations, Jamie.
Very good at this.
Okay. What's up wrong,
The interesting issues, it's almost, I almost wish we had sat in on some of those ad hoc meetings, because they're coming in a little bit cold in what they discuss. I think that, you know, Bill and this committee did a great job, I know they're smart
Really,
people, so,
very good.
there's
I went through that. I went through that whole class.
In reading it, yeah, page
Yeah.
94.
To make sure that I felt confident about some of this stuff.
Mandy, you heading right back, or you down for a few days?
I'm heading back tomorrow.
All right.
No. Well, you have a wonderful way back.
It's been a
I'm
beautiful,
heading back
it's been a
about
beautiful
an hour.
summer, hasn't it? It's been a